Now we'll shift gears a bit to the startups on sustainable materials. Right, we have another 4 exciting startups for you. Great. All right, so we'll start with Manisha from TELUS, telling a bit about her startup in green plastics.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Hello, everyone. I'm Manisha Mohan. I'm presenting TELUS Technologies. We are a team of MIT graduates working on zero waste plastic solutions. The problem related to plastic pollution is not unknown. Nearly 300 million tons of plastic is produced every year, and out of which 50% is single-use plastic. Today, we have only been able to recycle 9% of the plastic which has been produced worldwide. And things which we consider to be more recyclable in nature, like cardboard or paper, don't tend to be recycled because of the thin plastic film which goes on top of these as a wax coating or as a plastic coating. The alternatives to plastic, the bioplastics, especially the synthetic one, are very lucrative. However, they pose another set of challenges with them, like microlitter or industrial composting is needed in many of these cases. When you look into the naturally sourced bioplastics, which are from seaweed or algae or even shrimp shells, we have another set of problems there, which are unreliable sourcing or unregulated sourcing for that matter. Shrimps are generally grown in or harvested in sewage water, and before putting it onto your plate, they are first bleached. So making them more unsustainable in some or the other regard. COVID has itself been a little bit challenging in many ways as well. TELUS is offering solutions in a wide format. We have a proprietary formulation here, which is in the form of either 2D films of coatings or 3D containers. We provide these technologies with different properties, which are mostly 100% recyclable, customizable, and 100% compostability. The technologies here with our team, we are able to tweak the properties depending upon different use cases. And primarily our focus has been to make sure that whatever the properties are needed for a particular use case, we're able to adhere to them. Since we all know that use cases of plastic have a wider span, you can look into different kind of industries, which we have looked in the past, from like personal hygiene spaces to the industrial applications. There's a broad spectrum there. And we hope that through TELUS's work, we're able to address all of those industries in one way or the other. We were able to do our first pilot in the last quarter related to personal hygiene, water-soluble packaging for soap. We are now working with 3 companies in the coating space to understand how we can help them reduce the amount of plastic coatings on cardboard boxes. On the R&D front, we are looking forward to our first industrial equipment, which is being shipped from Italy, to start working on the PPE and the non-woven aspect. Our experimental endeavors also last in the food industry, where we're looking at edible form of packaging and even lightweight materials. Today from this platform, our ask is mostly in the space of manufacturing as well. Companies who are planning to transition towards sustainable materials, or even brands for that matter, who are looking for alternatives. We are very open to collaborations and co-developments in the new material sustainability space, and we look forward to engaging with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Madisha. Next, we have Jack Barron from Sweetwater Energy.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jack Barron, as Rebecca said. Thank you, Rebecca. I'm co-founder and president at Sweetwater Energy. I'm going to be sharing my screen now. At Sweetwater Energy, we've developed a platform technology to transform sustainable biomass into high-value specialty cellulose, clean lignin, and fermentable non-food sugars to replace petroleum-based ingredients and improve product profitability. The global problem that we address is that current biomass processing is inefficient. It's high waste, high cost, and carries a significant negative environmental impact. As a result, sustainable products made from wood and crop residues can't compete economically with oil in markets for fuels, chemicals, packaging, paints, and coatings. Oil has done a great job over the last 120 years getting into almost every product we use today. Even now, during this COVID crisis, we have a team in Estonia proving that our commercial technology, in fact, works at commercial scale. It's based on twin screw extrusion, modified and patented, to break down biomass in just 20 seconds into its component parts. Cellulosic sugars that are fermentable into biofuels for transportation and biochemicals. Clean, non-sulfonated lignin, unlike the lignin made by the pulp and paper industry today, usable for paints, coatings, adhesives, resins, polyurethane foams, and insulating foams. And one of the things we're most excited about, specialty cellulose, microcrystalline and nanofibrillated cellulose that allow our partners to lightweight their packaging to reduce costs. Works well, of course, in processed wood for furniture and cabinetry. You can even find specialty cellulose in the foods we eat, and the Japanese government, just this past October, built an electric car body. Over 95% of the body is from nanofibrillated cellulose at up to 5 times the strength of steel and 1/2 the weight. We're working extensively with the pulp and paper industry in packaging specifically. We have multiple partners now globally in the US, Europe, Southeast Asia, and South America. The focus that they have is to lower their cost and improve profitability using our products and improve their sustainability. Specifically, the way they're improving product performance and profitability is to lightweight the packaging, enhance strength to reduce cost. One customer of ours estimates that we can save their customers, roughly 150 paper companies and packaging companies around the world, up to $5 million per year per site. We're also working with them to use our nanofibrillated cellulose to act as a coating to reduce or eliminate petroleum-based ingredients, thereby saving cost and improving product oxygen barrier. The opportunities we're looking for today, we're seeking additional partner companies to collaborate with us using our building block ingredients to develop their own proprietary, low-cost, sustainable products to achieve better market position and profitability for themselves. The industries and applications we're focused on now include packaging and paper, processed wood for construction, furniture, auto parts, cement. In fact, just this past 2 weeks, we had a breakthrough with one of our partners in Southeast Asia. Using just 1/2% of our microcrystalline cellulose in a concrete mixture, they were able to double the tensile strength of that concrete, a 100% increase. We're working with companies in fuels, biochemicals, polyurethane foams, and bioplastics. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Very exciting. Next up, we have Lumi, and Tom from Lumi will be speaking.
How's it going, everyone? I'm going to share my screen now. All right. So at Lumi, we have a material innovation that's so sustainable that it's not a material at all. What we do at Lumi is we generate data. And the data that we generate is used in package printing. So what we do is we generate data that goes into the standard printing presses that are currently used to produce packaging and labels. And out of these printing presses come what looks like very expensive, non-sustainable materials, but in fact, it's produced using inexpensive, sustainable substrates that you probably have already worked with and have come to trust. So everyone knows that in package printing, sort of the name of the game is shelf appeal, right? So if you can get a consumer to pick up a package off the shelf, they're something like 80% more likely to put it into the basket. Traditionally, this means applying metallic foils, holographic foils, and in some cases, applying lenticular foils to packaging. The problem with all of these is that they're just not very sustainable, because what you're doing is you're taking a dissimilar material, you're adhering it to the rest of the label or to the package. It's also hard to integrate. It can slow down the production process. It's very expensive as well. And it's less robust. Things can flake off as you squeeze them. So the solution that we have reproduces these and a brand new category of effects just by putting new digital data into the existing printing presses that you're already using. So that means that it can be dramatically less expensive than using a less sustainable substrate. For example, depending on the size of the run, you can save hundreds of thousands of dollars by eliminating your foil costs. It's more sustainable. It's more elegant because you can put these effects in a brand new set of places and create new effects that people haven't never seen before. It's also more secure for a bunch of reasons that I can get into offline, which I think is pretty interesting. So here's some examples of the types of things that we can do. Right now, we're focusing primarily on pressure-sensitive labeling and on shrink sleeve, because we think that applies to a pretty broad range of packaging types. So both of these start out as a clear substrate. And then what our process does is basically we just send 1-bit TIFF files to the printing press. The printing press prints regular ink on both sides of that clear substrate. And adhesive is applied in the sense of, in the case of a pressure-sensitive label, and you get these types of effects. One thing to notice with the shrink sleeve is that the effect extends around the very top lip of the can, which is something that is difficult with a lot of other types of embellishments. Some other examples, just very quickly. The first examples that you see here are more in the product authentication space. So these are things that are specifically designed to be difficult to reproduce, and they're all on clear substrates that you can see through when the final product is made. So you can see there's a whole bunch of different types of effects integrated into one example. This is a meaningful product for us because this was for a local Boston area brewery. It was produced in between 2 other completely different products on a printing press. There was no modifications made to the press whatsoever. All we did is we just put different TIFFs into the plate making machine, put the plates on the press, and you get these types of shifting triangle effects that you see in the artwork there. So we've had a lot of brands who are really interested in working with us. In particular, a lot of them have been smaller brands who have been able to move very quickly. This one that is on the left-hand side of the screen is one that we went into production with in the Minneapolis area a couple weeks ago. Those folks were so fast, from sort of talking to them to doing a design mock-up to getting labels in their hands, it was about 3 or 4 weeks end to end, and they had these labels. And what we're looking for larger brands who are able to move quickly to get these things onto sort of short-run products and potentially save a whole bunch of money. And you'd be the first larger brands to have that on a product of any kind. So please reach out to me, and I'd love to connect. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Next, we have Ani from Gravity.
Thanks, Rebecca. I'm just going to share my screen. 1 second. Okay. Is this visible?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay, awesome. So just like Jack started his presentation, my name is Anirudh, and he mentioned that how petroleum has done a really good job at in the industry in the last 100 years. So anything black around you that you see, like when it's printed on fabrics, textiles, most of it is made by deliberately burning fossil fuels by producing a material called carbon black. And we, as Gravity Labs, what we do is we turn carbon emissions. Virtually, carbon emissions is a very wide term. We are interested in the particulate aspect of it. So whenever you will burn fossil fuels in a very generalized way, you will produce these emissions, which have a lot of impact, negative impact on the environment. And a lot of companies, governments are talking about it and how to reduce the impacts of this. We developed a process and technology to turn different sources of carbon emissions into high-grade industrial scalable inks and pigments and coatings. So essentially, we have our own technology that can capture these particulate emissions. Plus, what we did was we kind of, when we started to do business, we found it very hard to scale the capture technology that we were building. So we kind of pivoted our process to becoming an upcycling company, where a lot of big industries who were already polluting and were releasing these emissions, but had to capture them to meet compliance, they were spending a lot of money on conventional waste management processes, which would require them to those emissions being further incinerated and put into landfill. So we came in and said that we can create value by turning these emissions into high-grade materials that the sustainable brands and companies are willing to pay for. So currently we're in a scale-up mode. We have a plant. We're based out of Boston. We have a plant in India. It's a carbon upcycling center. We are scaling up where we are. A lot of these emissions are coming in, and we are creating these replacement materials that can be used to formulate inks and coatings. The way we work is by internalizing least of these number of processes. So essentially, what we do is to our upcycling center, these carbon emissions come. We apply the chemistry that we have developed, the redox chemistry, to sustainably upcycle the emissions into high grades of carbon black, and then these intermediates go to our partners that manufacture inks in our under our brand that go on to be sold to sustainable packaging industries. We have been in this space for last, I would say, 3 years, and now is the scale up happening. We are seeing conversion of big companies such as Dell coming in and replacing their packaging printing inks. So Dell currently consumes approximately 150,000 liters of ink for just the corrugated packaging business they are in. And most of that printing is black in color. So we are running a pilot right now where we're shipping out 5,000 gallons per month to Dell, to their printing partners that execute the Dell's packaging printing. One of our early adopter companies is also MasterCard that is moving into sustainable materials for their credit cards, and they have launched credit cards. The interesting thing here, what we're trying to do is we are playing the material game, but we're also applying a solid brand on top, which makes these companies mention and derive points on their marketing side. So all of these clients that we have, they mention that they are printing by using recycled carbon emissions and pollution. Other formulations that we have are valid for writing instruments. So we have joint development agreements going on with a couple of writing instrument companies which use black as a writing color. And how can we replace the conventional ink streams that they've used in order to be more sustainable and introduce air ink into that process. The way we have two revenue streams. One is by replacing the materials, selling air ink to these apparel, packaging, and writing instrument companies. And then is by doing joint developments on IP side with companies that want to do new carbon-based materials with us. Three main products that we have right now. One, the most successful one till now in the packaging space is flexographic air ink, which goes on to corrugated packaging. Then is apparel. So we have a joint development going on currently with A6 America, where they are putting us on their Mexican and Vietnamese lines to replace the conventional black color that they've been using in their in their apparel printing. In terms of sustainability, we are looking at as we are going to market in enhancing certain properties of these materials. So how do we also turn these materials into compostable? We are working on those certifications and on inducing recyclability into inks as we scale further. The main reason why these companies adopt us is primarily because without changing anything on their printing lines and manufacturing process, they're able to gain on the environmental impact, which currently is being studied through an LCA. And then by getting a major brand boost, which gets them to charge a slight value add from their final end customer, which is willing to pay for higher sustainability. The graph on the right side is a graph by Dell where they've done cost analysis, and it's right that it's hard to compete with petroleum. But so we have a slight premium on our inks, but we are noticing that the client is willing to pay that extra premium for the advantage that they're getting right now. We are looking for partnerships. So we're looking for partnerships with any companies who are interested in both carbon capture and new carbon negative materials, and with sustainability in our focus. And we're based in Boston. We have a plant in India, which is scaling up, and we're upcycling large amounts of this pollution, up to like 4 tons a month right now. Yeah, but that's my email address. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Annie. We're going to bring back our 4 sustainable materials startup now for some Q&A. Great. Yeah, maybe you could just stop the sharing so you can see everyone. Excellent. All right, we have a couple of questions rolling in. For Sweetwater, you mentioned the polyethylene foam as a target material. What work have you performed in this area and what were the target material benefit?
The work we've been doing is generally with partners, so we're under NDA, and we'd love to talk about that further, but it has been specifically in packaging foams and insulating foams, as in building foam. And a number of folks actually in Europe are using our lignin now primarily for those particular projects, but we'd love to talk to you further.
And for Talis, for waste bags, do you think we should go at 100% recyclable, 100% biodegradable, or a combination of both?
I think the best option is to go fully compostable instead of doing recyclability, because recycling also requires more energy. And we are at a point in the time frame where we can't produce more energy on this planet. We need something which comes from Earth, goes back into the Earth.
Do you feel the solution is close enough for us to have those biodegradable bags to scale?
I think we are mostly at the intersection between R&D and first set of pilots. I think within a year or two, we should have some solutions for market use cases.
I believe we also have a third poll to run, asking folks about what are some of their interests in sustainable materials, what are the trade-offs that's being made. It'd be great if you could answer that. While that's happening, I'm going to ask a couple more questions of our startups. So to Lumi, how about consumer electronics industry? I think people be hearing about your beer collaborations.
Yeah, so one of the reasons that we focused on some of the breweries is just that they tend to move very quickly. But you know, the other thing that's interesting about the sort of beer industry is that you get a pretty broad range of representative packaging types. So it's great technical tests, right? So you know, of course, the one beer can that I showed that we did was you know, had a pressure sensitive label on it. So absolutely, if there's anything in the electronics industry where you've got a pressure sensitive label on the packaging, whether that's on the packaging or on the product itself, that's something that we can very easily work with. I don't see a lot of shrink sleeve used in the electronics industry, although there are some potential counterexamples there. But I would say in the electronics industry, it would probably be pressure sensitive labels, or we have done some explorations into rigid plastic packaging. So that would be like those rigid clear plastic boxes that headphones and things sometimes come in. And with those, what you can do is you can print directly on both sides of that plastic substrate and create these really, you know, eye-catching 3D effects that you just haven't seen before without using any additional materials beyond just the ink. So I'd love to talk with anyone who's in the space if they have thoughts about that.
Great. For Annie Gravicki, is it possible to use your process with the CO2 gas emission from chimneys of a cement industry?
Right. Yeah. CO2 is a problem that we are looking at right now. It's a very interesting space, especially in the European geographies. The capture technology that we develop right now, we are looking at introducing some amines and some MOFs, metal oxide frameworks into it to enable CO2 capture. We already have a collaboration going on with Tata Steel right now that is looking at potentially using CO2 DAC, like direct air captured CO2, and making tiles with it. So we already have a collaboration. If you just Google like carbon tile, you'll see there's a Mumbai-based company that has just introduced tiles made out of carbon using our technology. So it's an interesting space. Currently, we are focused on, as a startup right now, because we are just very young right now, so focusing on packaging and apparel. But as we scale up, as we have more expertise in this area, we would look at construction industry as one of the output streams that we can target. Yeah.
We have the results back from sustainable materials, the challenges. And I think it's similar to what we saw earlier with advanced materials. It's trading off between the performance, the cost, with those being the primary concern, and balancing of those two. So any of our panelists want to speak to that about enabling sustainable materials to perform at the right cost, and then balancing the two needs?
I think cost is clearly always a driver in sustainability. I mean, you can only really scale these types of technologies if you're saving money as a general rule. But you can sometimes save money through performance enhancement, of course, as well. So in packaging, for example, that's part of the area we've been focusing. It does, our materials can in fact enhance product performance in addition to focusing on cost.
Right. Anyone else want to take that on in terms of how your solutions can help with the cost, performance?
I think, I'll take this. So in a way, in the early stages of what we did, we were like bootstrapped for the longest time before taking in the VC money. And the early stages, the way we convince large companies to work with us is, yes, you're going to pay 10 times the premium on conventional inks, but the amount of goodwill that you earn in the market has a number to it. So a lot of branding industry, a lot of all these brands in the end, which are talking about sustainability, have a very strong push from their marketing departments on also showcasing how sustainable they are, because that drives their consumer behavior. So from that, in the early stages, any sustainable company can drive that extra dollar value. And yeah, I think that's where we kind of had some success in during our early stages. But yeah, ultimately ultimately a commodity is a commodity, and I think you have to match the price, but it takes time to get there. Yeah.
That's a really good point. When I first got here a year and a half ago, I heard from some of our program directors, like, everybody says they're interested in sustainability, but they're not really to pay for that. But now that message has changed drastically, where a lot of folks are saying our CEO has made a pledge for sustainability. So, or we even see with P&G where sustainability is their #1 goal coming up. So I think there's a lot of interest in this area. So it's about how to get corporates to become comfortable with the moves to these new technology. So any lessons learned from your the customers you have worked with in terms of making that push or sell to their upper management or to others to make this sustainability a reality? Any thoughts on what are corporates doing well and can learn from?
So you know, one thing I think is worth mentioning is the and this speaks to some of the points that were already said, but it's the idea of if you can structure the purchase that you're making to enhance the sustainability as coming out of, you know, a marketing budget, and that works better for some types of materials than others. It actually works really well in our case because we're a one-time cost that the brand pays and eliminates a per unit cost, so that one-time cost can come out of the marketing budget. But I think that in terms of thinking about different structures, that's something that you know, we're certainly eager to think about. And I think, just to echo some other points that were made, like, think about it structurally differently, I think is maybe the 2 cents that I have, and that often can provide some opportunities to make it feasible.
We've also noticed a similar trend, and I'll definitely say that the common theme has been with, you know, the branding and improving upon to the brand sense. But also another thing which we're noticing is that the very realization which is coming from the regulatory aspect of it, and just not the enforced regulations, but also communities which are more in a natural habitat, have started realizing it more crucially now, and they want to take an action towards it because it's hurting their businesses, their local you know, GDP and all of that stuff. For countries especially which are surrounded by oceans, their concerns are more aggressive in that sense, and they really want to see the change right now.
Very good. Yeah, I just want to comment on multiple folks have mentioned that if Tom and Ani can leverage this data technology together with both the ink and printing tech, it'd be even more sustainable. So I thought that's yeah.
Well, I agree 100%, and you know, I think it would be fantastic to do a project, you know, for example, where we use that ink, which the ink you know, as it arrives in the can, I mean, it looks black, but we can make that ink look metallic, or we can make it look three-dimensional just by sending different data to the press. So that would be fantastic to collaborate.
And this is interesting what you just said, because one challenge we are facing is, because now we are getting commoditized and we are being used in China, a lot of copying is starting to happen. And how do we keep the authenticity of what we are doing in terms of ink? So because it's very hard to differentiate. We know that it's our ink, but the customer doesn't know it's our ink. And there are third-party printers coming in. So if we can add that marker that you have to this, I think it can be very powerful value add that can be given to the final customer who is interested in packaging. And the biggest value probably, you don't need to change anything on the printing line. I think that philosophy kind of matches. So yeah, that could be very powerful, Tom. Yeah.
You know, Rebecca, one of the things that I think is funny is, as I'm sitting here listening to everyone else's presentation, Sweetwater wants to connect with Ani, with Monisha, and with Tom, because honestly, we're talking to a lot of the same exact customers, all of us. And I know we could help each other, and there is absolutely some synergy in product. I know for a fact there is. Monisha's in coatings, Tom's in labels, and talking to the exact same customers. And we even have had discussions around our lignin to carbon black. So we're going to need to talk to Ani too.
Yeah, I think there's a great. Yeah, and the previous companies before the little break, I think the way the material science has been scaled up, that mentorship from like more experienced entrepreneurs could be really, really helpful, because I think challenges are very similar in what we are doing, and that help kind of is so niche, this whole space, that we have found so difficult in the early stages. But I think, yeah, that mentorship could be really helpful in kind of creating this group and staying in touch. Yeah.
Yeah, we would love to help enhance that to make all of you guys more ready for corporates to work with. I think you saw in the earlier presentation, we have started really at the very beginning, as well as very mature company that is in half of all the phones out there. So I think there's a lot of potential ways to connect, to learn from each other. I want to say thank you to our panelists for making this a really great event, and hopefully a lot of fruitful connections. I believe everyone has seen that poll for filling out who to follow up with. We'll take that information and give the program directors and help make some of those connections happen. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having us. Bye.
Bye-bye.